format to justify playing something different than the deck you literally just won a tournament with, right? So it makes a lot of sense. You can run it back again, and clearly doing very well for him, given that he's already at 5 wins and 1 loss, and is just 1 win away from a potential day 2 match point securing.
Yeah, a few notable prizes here. All of the Iono for Alberto are in the prize cards. There is no access to Hand Disruption, and does also not have access to that Squawkabilly EX. That is not something you want. It's really a big bailout card if you're looking for a solid turn, especially going first. On Isaiah's side, nothing too relevant. This is why you play multiple copies of that Fan Rotom for that fan call ability. A candy in there, a stretcher, but nowhere really in comparison to what Alberto does not have access to this year.
No, not at all. No, I know that's rough. I mean, at the very least, if you think to yourself, it's a card you want to see later on anyway, so maybe that will be okay. But yeah, all of them are prize really not ideal by any stretch of the imagination. Meanwhile, Isaiah's prizes being a lot more workable in that instance. Very interesting that he switched to this Terrapagos, like, not quite Terrapagos Dusknoir, more, as you said, Terrapagos Noctowl, although featuring that small package of the 101 Dusknoir line just for a little bit of extra push with that Curse Blast.
Curse Blast is so good. It is one of the best abilities the Pokemon TCG has seen recently, and possibly of all time. Just being able to, almost trade 1 for 1, but more, just having the control to do 130 damage anywhere you want. And you see Isaiah Bradner, an extremely methodical player. He is already locked in, thinking about what he needs to do to secure himself a spot in day 2 and push himself 1 step closer to finally getting that big event win, that international win. He has had a slower season playing this Drago deck. This would be the storyline. Finally switching up, playing something he's maybe not as comfortable with for the sake of having a solid result. Let's see this matchup here and get down into the stage. Alberto Conti up against Isaiah Bradner. Let's get into it.
Yeah, and it looks like Alberto will be going first. That's already going to be a big advantage for sure, as he looks at a clever start. And, oh wait, hold on, is there not much else going on in the hand? Wait.
Is he considering attaching to this Cleffa? Oh no, that is not what you want to do.
Oh no!
And just passing the turn over. And now luckily for Alberto, Isaiah's deck does not have any way to, it does.
Yeah, it does, yeah, you can just go with the Fan Rotom.
The Fan Rotom could be all Isaiah needs. Would need to find a way to pivot this out of the active spot. So looking at this list, there is just the 1 copy of, well, I guess there is a penny in the deck, so that could be relevant. Looking for cards like just a raw Switch, something just like Switch, but that's not in the list here, it seems. So,
okay.
It's not guaranteed yet, but there is definitely a world here where, I mean, look, if Isaiah had the penny, we wouldn't even be playing this out. The Fan Rotom is there. Well, actually, let's not forget that Fan Rotom does need to have a Stadium card in play to use that attack.
So there's a few pieces here, yeah.
Yeah, but the big thing, though, for Isaiah is, while it would be great to win the game on this first turn, this start alone is already just enough. Essentially, you get to go first against your opponent, and you get to play a supporter card.
Yes.
There is not much more you can ask, especially when you already have the Fan Rotom in hand, you're playing this Buddy Puffin, and you know your opponent is really struggling to be able to get anything going next turn, and possibly the turn after that. I mean, that is a signal of an extremely weak hand. At worst, the game ends next turn, and at best, something like a Professor's Research is going to get rid of a ton of pieces, because we know all the Iono are in the prize cards.
Yeah, no, and actually, I think even with that, I see 1 supporter in hand for Alberto, but I think it's the boss's orders. So like, Alberto's riding on the top of his deck here. His hand is a complete brick.
Isaiah doesn't know that yet, so of course we'll still play this game out as best as possible, as optimally as possible. We'll now use that Fan Call ability on Fan Rotom. I've got a bias towards Rotom. I love Rotom. He's great, and this is why. He's a friend, and he gets you your friends. Grabbing what looks to be the Hoothoot and a Noctowl. I think just considering what that third choice is going to be, could just grab a second Noctowl. Now, it's always risky when you don't have the information of your opponent having Ionos prized, but will be to Isaiah's advantage here since Alberto lacks any way to hand disrupt Isaiah from this point on. So it will just be the Buddy Puffin for 2 Hootoots, and just considering what that third 100 HP or less colorless Pokemon will be, and it is that Noctowl. And now the big question is, as long as a Terra Pokemon comes in play, it's going to be, it's
a Buffalon.
Okay, and the hollow pattern looks very, very similar. So
yes, it does.
It is the Buffalon. That Curly Wall ability finding its way into this deck. Tord's been a big believer of this card, had it in his asymmetrical cut placement, and then recently, of course, second place at the most recent Europe Regional Championships. just having an ability that says you take 60 less is absurdly good.
Yeah, really, really strong card. Do need 2 Boufflant in play for the ability to activate, of course, but there are 2 in the deck. One there, and yeah, it's going to be a pass. What does Alberto find off the top of his deck? Oh, it's a research off the top of the deck.
It is a research, but it's sort of pick your poison in this case.
A little bit. I mean, you have to, right?
You do have to. You got to play to what you got to do here. I mean, at least see those 7 cards before you're going to make a decision. See the resources that are going down, though. I mean, that is definitely a big thing to think about. Looks like Boss's Orders, Super Rod, Energy Switch. Look, it could definitely be worse for
Yeah, it could.
So,
I think given the situation, he'll be very, very grateful for that. And yeah, some of the basics found now, so this game won't end just yet. We do see a Nest Ball, we do see a Teal Mask Ogopon. Yeah, Alberto is going to be breathing a huge sigh of relief right now.
So Alberto's still in this game. It's not over by any means, but the entire tempo of going first in this matchup, such an important and crucial advantage, has essentially just gone right to Isaiah's way after not winning the coin flip. So look, you're going to get your board set up, cooking a little bit, but there is still a lot of work, and it's really going to come down to what Isaiah is holding on to in this situation, since, look, this start so far is good, and Jewel Seeker is a great ability, but without Terapagos, without the double turbo energies, without getting Pidgeot set into play, this deck really struggles to be consistent in terms of doing what it wants to do, and those are questions that are going to be answered based off of the other cards Isaiah has access to.
Yeah, and right now, looking at Alberto's hand, I don't believe I see a way to get a second Regidrago V down, so if it's going to be Nest Ball for just this one, then if Isaiah can put together a turn where, with 2 Noctiles in hand, as long as you can get, as you mentioned, a Terapagos down, I'm fairly sure you can put together, just getting all the Pokemon onto the bench, getting down the stadium, double turbo on a Terapagos, use a Prime Catcher or Boss's Orders to bring up the lone Regidrago V, and then you're off to and then you're pretty much walking away with the game. And I'm fairly sure with double Noctowl in hand, you can pull it off as well.
So Alberto now taking his time, doing that first deck search, seeing what pieces are available. We'll get the grim news that there are no Iono in the deck, so Hand Disruption, not a potential option for Alberto as of this moment. We will see the Nest Ball get a Regidrago V, put that onto the bench. It's really crucial this turn that Alberto gets a second copy of that down, just because of how aggressive Isaiah's deck can be towards targeting specific Pokemon. And there it is. Oh, looks like actually the Mew instead. Does he not have an attachment for hand?
No, that's what I was saying, right? Just off the Nest Ball, not able to. There's no other way to find more cards. Really, really rough. I mean, it gets you into the game at least, but the Professor's Research draw was not the best for sure, especially given the situation that Alberto's in.
Not at all. So just the one copy of Regidrago, and just has the rare Candy Pidgeot. We don't need Jewel Seeker. We've got it right here in hand. Isaiah is off to an excellent start. Now, the big question here, can Isaiah find this Terapagos without having to use Quick Search? And he can do exactly that. Does have to get rid of that second Boufflant, which did hit the discard pile thanks to that Ultra Ball. But it means now Terapagos can come down, and we will see a chain of Jewel Seekers. And I will go out of my way to confidently say I think this Regidrago V is not going to be sticking around for next turn.
Well, no, especially not because actually not needing to Quick Search for the Terapagos, but also not even needed to Quick Search for the double Turbo Energy. It's already in Isaiah's hand.
Wow, picture perfect here for Isaiah. Exactly how you draw it up, and now it's just about figuring the best way to sequence everything out. Terapagos comes down, and there's the first of many we'll see during this set. Jewel Seeker, one of the most powerful abilities for your stellar Pokemon decks. When you evolve it, you can search your deck for any 2 trainer cards. Any 2. Supporters, items, stadiums, you name it, they go to your hand, and it works perfectly in getting Pidgeot set up. But when you already have Pidgeot set up, everything else is just a cherry on top. Can immediately just find the Area 0 to expand the bench for that Terapagos, and the Prime Catcher, the most powerful ace-spec in the format, able to gust up a Pokemon and put intense pressure onto Alberto right off the bat.
Yeah, and I think the rest of the hand as well is what, a Research. Yeah, I think the rest of it's a Research and double Turbo. You could not ask for a more perfect start here. My goodness, Isaiah's firing on, I think more than all cylinders, if that's even possible here, just with the strongest start imaginable. There's the attachment, and then the last card in hand, Professor's Research to draw 7. Hasn't even used Quick Search yet. Didn't need it.
No Quick Search yet. Only one Jewel Seeker ability used. This is absolutely perfect. How you would draw it up for here for Isaiah. Now, just needs to find a few more basic Pokemon, needs to find the full bench of 8, and then that Unified Beatdown doing 30 damage for each of your benched Pokemon. Can deal 240 damage, minus the 20 from the double Turbo Energy will be exactly enough to take the knockout onto Regidrago V. And then from there, how does Alberto respond? especially when there's only one energy in play on the Ogre Pawn. Isaiah's at 4 prices, so Radiant Charizard will be difficult to use, and it's just a really, really tough situation for Alberto. And you got to feel for him. He's in a big match here. 5-1, winning in against a really good player, a lot to prove. It's going to be a tough match, and you just open like that, and it's out of your control, but it's still frustrating.
Yeah. I think as well with was it Nesball coming in, was drawn off the research. Actually just went ahead and did quick search for that Bouffalance, and I think with that is pretty much all there ready to go with the full bench of 8 needed for Terapagos to do 220 damage with the Unified Beatdown, which will knock out that Regidrago V exactly. So going to be feeling very, very happy about that. Just making some room on the bench there and moving the cards forward. So the Duskull down, Bouffalon down, and I do believe is there another Terapagos going down as well, just for good measure as a backup attacker in case there's some ways of finding a KO.
And the Duskull coming down is just even more pressure that's going to be applied next turn. There's no threat of Phantom Dive as it stands, so no risk to having that Duskull down. Usually you've got to be a little bit careful since the 6 damage counters can allow you to take extra prize cards, turn into 2 prize turns with Phantom Dive. But in this case, Alberto is really not threatening much at all in the situation, especially with Curly Wall being available. It means even if he's somehow able to get the Radiant Charizard, the Fire Energy, the Energy Switch, it's all essentially for naught since it won't even take the knockout onto something like this Terapagos, and then Dusknoir or Dusclops can put in so much work in this matchup, especially when there's a Clef on the bench.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys at home can hear it through the speakers here. We certainly can hear in the booth the crowd going absolutely nuts for I think one of the other games, I'm guessing one of the locals just won.
I wish our game was that high.
I know,
unfortunately, we need to see some more.
If we get a Brazilian in the finals, it will be. You believe me.
We will. Right now it's still early in the tournament, so I'm not going to count this crowd out yet. I hope this crowd shows up for Championship Sunday. I would love to see that. I'll believe in you, crowd. I'll believe it when I see it. So show up, especially if you're out here in the crowd. If you're watching from home, we hope to see you there on Championship Sunday as well. But we've got a match to focus on here.
Yes,
Pheasantipity can be used. Of course, that flip the script ability, a cornerstone for almost every deck in the format to allow you to draw 3 cards as long as one of your Pokemon were knocked out the previous turn. And not a bad find here for Alberto. Has another Regidrago V that can come down. The question again, if you're not attacking this turn, how are you ever clawing yourself back into a win? Sure, you can use something like the Myriad Leaf Shower to at least pressure the Terapagos a little bit, but Isaiah doesn't even have to do any work. He can just do whatever he wants. Quick search, find pieces. There's a 2 prize card turn waiting for Isaiah, essentially no matter what happens, because Quick Search is just one of the most incredible support engines that any deck could want currently in Standard.
Yeah, and is there a way for Alberto to get down to Regidrago V this turn? I'm not even sure if there is, because you have to do that at minimum, because otherwise, you can just Quick Search for a boss's orders and take a KO very easily again. So it looks like it's going to be the Nesball for that Radiant Charizard.
So, we talk about this a lot with, of course, the Terapagos deck, since it uses the Area 0 to deal big damage, but let's not forget, Alberto does have Terra Pokemon of his own on the bench, so now he can sort of take advantage of the extra bench spaces and commit these bench slots that would normally be a little bit risky to the support Pokemon like Mew and Pheasantipity.
And I stand corrected here. There was a Regidrago V in the hand already, and Ultra Ball just grab a second one, so now going to be able to use a Super Rod to get back those 2 Regidrago V-Star that were just discarded for the Ultra Ball, and actually going to be able to get down now the Radiant Charizard and 2 Regidrago V. So this is exactly like the kind of the comeback turn that Alberto needs in order to try and get back into this game.
It's a comeback turn indeed, but you've got to be taking prizes at this point. If you're not taking any prize cards this turn,
it's rough.
It's very, very rough. Again, Isaiah can search out any card he wants as long as Pidgeot EX is in play. Nothing will be shutting that off. And we know there's no Iono as well, so Isaiah is just going to continue to build his hand up. Of course, had the research last turn, so had plenty of cards. Took 2 cards off the prizes to build the hand up even more. And this is all Alberto could do, is just try and, dig through the deck as much as possible.
Oh, you know what? That feels really bad as well. Had to discard that Prime Catcher without even using it, so not even going to get any value out of that this game unless you get it back later off of a Legacy Star.
Yeah, an interesting choice to not play the Prime Catcher, and this probably signals here for Alberto that he wants to attack in some capacity against this Terapagos. If you weren't going to attack and use something like Clef's Grasping Draw, you could always just retreat first, play the Prime Catcher, and bring up something like, the Bouffalante on the bench, or something that's going to be a little bit harder to move. You require maybe Isaiah to not have a double turbo or boss. You can't pick both. You've got to decide if you want to take the 1 prize or if you want to, leave this in the active and get boss for next turn. So I kind of wonder here what Alberto's end game is, at least for this turn. Haven't counted him out yet, of course, is going to play the Earthen Vessel, find some more energy cards. But I really do wonder here what Alberto's plan is to claw himself back into this game.
Looks like it's going to be starting with another Teal Mask Ogre Pawn hitting the bench. So one more Teal Dance can come in, attaching that grass energy. What does he draw off the top there? It looks like, an energy switch. That's a good find.
There is the energy switch, but no matter how many energies you put on this Ogre Pawn, it's not going to be enough, especially with the Bouffalant in play. And now let's not forget that Curly Wall is not online. It is sort of something that, pops up here and there. You do have to have both of those Bouffalant. All these hollow Pokemon look so similar.
You're right.
The Noctowl and the Bouffalant.
Hold on a second. You do enough energy switches with the and onto the Radiant Charizard. You can actually attack with it.
That is true. I didn't think it was possible because of Curly Wall, but it's not online. And here we go. It looks like we are going to see 2 energy switch and the Radiant Charizard come up. So hold on. We just got ourselves a real match, Freya. I think Alberto's still in a good spot, but that is exactly what you want to find. This is the perfect turn. Alberto digging so deep and essentially finding everything that he would want to draw up in the spot. The counter stadium to bump Area 0. That will force Isaiah, now that stadium's no longer in play, to discard bench Pokemon until there are only 5 in play. And this is a really interesting decision to get rid of the Duskull. The play I had in my mind here is you can knock out the Radiant Charizard and then use the Dusknoir's Cursed Blast ability to knock out Clef on the bench and put yourself down to 2 prizes. However, Isaiah, not seeing that in his future for now, will discard that along with the Noctowl and the Fan Rotom. And we've got some more action here. Okay, drawing some more cards with Restart, but what a solid turn for Alberto. After having no Regidrago in play, just a single Teal Mask Ogre Pawn, claws back and takes a knockout with that Combustion Blast on Charizard.
So that second draw of the Teal Dance, finding that second energy switch was absolutely crucial. Without that, he wouldn't have been able to pull off this turn.
I think it's fair for how poor he drew on the first turn to get a little bit lucky, but look, I think Isaiah's still in the driver's seat. Did take the first 2 prizes, and there is now that 1 prize Pokemon in the active spot, so it could mess up the prize trade a little bit. Still a lot of work to be done, though. There hasn't been a V-Star power used yet, and that Temple of Sinnoh being in play does make it so all special energy cards only provide 1 colorless energy. So as it stands, Terapagos cannot attack for a single attachment, would need to find a counter stadium, one of those other 2 remaining Area 0 under depths available.
Yeah, that's going to be very important. And of course, to help get him there, he's going to rely on a little bit of that help from that Pheasantipity EX with that Flip the Script ability. Like you said earlier, Ethan, seems like almost every single deck in the format is playing this card now. Why wouldn't you, right? Just being able to draw 3 cards when one of your Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn, just to find you those 3 extra resources, get you there, and look at that, finds a Noctowl for good measure.
That's step 1 for sure. Of course, that Terra Pokemon is still in play, so you can still use that Jewel Seeker ability. And this is really the big question for Isaiah. So it's all about resources in the start. You've already used your Prime Catcher. Do still have Boss's Orders left. And let's not forget there's also some cool ways to win the game for Isaiah here with things like Briar, ways like Thornton to bring back multiple Duskull into play. If one's in play, you go ahead and use that ability. Isaiah's got a lot of tools to his disposal. That was an awesome turn for Alberto, but Isaiah is kind of, being like, okay, you got maybe a little bit lucky to get that. I still think I've got this, and we'll see what this quick search target is. Again, can grab any card out of the deck. A lot of choices.
Looks like it's going to be a Night Stretcher, and I think he's thinking, I want to get back that Bouffalant. I want to make sure that I can get the second Bouffalant down. I want to activate that Curly Wall ability, and I want to make it as hard as possible for Alberto to get a KO on me.
Yeah, a lot of interesting pieces. We do see the penny in the hand. That could always be beneficial later on in the game. And here we go. The first Jewel Seeker of the turn has only used 1 so far, so we'll go ahead and evolve. And since there is a Terra Pokemon in play, again, finding those 2 trainer cards. One of them will be Boss's Orders, and I'm not sure if there's a Stadium card in play yet. As it stands, it's only dealing it's 30 damage, of course, for each of your benched Pokemon in play, right? So
looks like it's going to be the choice there from the Jewel Seeker. Hisuian Heavy Ball and Boss's Orders. So after that, it's going to shuffle up. I don't know if there's another Noctowl in the hand. I don't remember seeing one. Quick Search has been used. Flip Script has been used. It's going to be Boss's Orders on the Pheasantipity. Oh, the Stadium was already in hand. Okay, so yeah, that makes complete sense now. And I believe the Double Turbo must be in hand already, because otherwise this wouldn't be possible. So yeah, Night Stretcher, coming in. And they're going to grab that Bouffalant. And now that Curly Wall ability is online.
Better late than never. Curly Wall is now in effect, as this bench can be expanded to a maximum of 8 bench Pokemon, so an additional 3. That's pretty solid for a deck that wants to deal more damage based off of your benched Pokemon, as Palpad will be the next card played. Shuffles back the boss's orders that just hit the discard pile, as well as a research. So a little bit of a mix, of course. That aggression that boss provides of targeting benched 2-prize Pokemon that are a little bit weaker, and the consistency and dig of Professor's research. Isaiah sees game plans where both could be useful. It's great to have both of those back with a card like Palpad.
Yeah, if you want to just like draw from more of your deck, or if you just want to bring something up easily to close things out, definitely good to get back, especially because in this deck they're both one-offs as well. So if you don't get in the back of Palpad, you can't make use of them at all. So definitely a smart choice there. Hisuian Heavy Ball is probably going to come down in a little bit. Oh, the Buddy Puffin is already in hand as well. So there's going to be no problem for Isaiah to refill out the bench, as we see. That fourth Hoot Hoot was, of course, in the prizes. So we'll be able to get that down and maybe go for a double Jewel Seeker later on.
It has become sort of the trend of how this deck is built recently. Max consistency, 4/4 Noctowl line. Wants to just use Jewel Seeker as much as possible because you can see how insanely strong that ability is. Another Hoot Hoot coming down means that if Alberto does not disrupt any of the benched Pokemon in play via, Phantom Dive or other knockouts, that these Jewel Seeker abilities are going to be online and a big threat to find those last pieces Isaiah needs to win.
Yeah, so there it is. Retreating now with the free retreat from the Pitch Up EX into that Terrapagos. Unified Beatdown, 220 damage. Knockout on the Pheasantipity EX. 2 more prize cards for Isaiah. And now it's back to Alberto, who after a really strong comeback turn, now has got a lot to contend with because previously you could take the KO on this Terrapagos very easily with that Radiant Charizard EX, but now that the Curly Wall is in play, that option is no longer available.
So Alberto did finally find that Iono off the prize card. So that is a big piece. Can finally hand disrupt Isaiah and the numerous pieces that he already has in his massive hand size. The big thing as well to note, there is a Drago V down, and additionally, there is the V-Star power has not yet been used. So a big thing here, Freya, for me, is there a specific card right now in the discard pile that could be the key for Alberto to climb back into this game?
Thinking it through, so I think at this point you just want to, maybe after doing this a restart, so you see what you find first, and then you take the decision afterwards. I imagine, I'm looking at the list here, Prime Catcher seems like a big one. We did see it discarded earlier. That would be a way to KO, because I think one of the big things you want to combine with this a potential knockout from a Regidrago V-Star is carrying this Pitch Up, right? Because that's a guaranteed search at any one card. If you can bring that up with the Prime Catcher and KO it, say like a Lost Impact, it isn't protected by Curly Wall. It only protects colorless basic Pokemon. So you could do a Lost Impact copying with the Apex Dragon. That would be a KO, and that would make this disruption the most effective it can be.
Yeah, I think the big thing here for Alberto, that Prime Catcher is piece number 1. As it stands right now, nothing is taking a knockout onto this Terrapagos EX because of the Curly Wall. So let's see what gets discarded here. Anything super relevant, just some energy cards, a switch, that can be, a little bit frustrating, but the big key piece for me is that Temple of Sinnoh coming back into play. Not only does it, again, remove more of these bench Pokemon for Isaiah, negating his damage for the next turn, but it also means those double turbo energies are not being able to be used unless there is that final Stadium card. So we'll use this Prime Catcher to bring up Pheasantipity. It does not have any change to its HP, so it will be knocked out by Radiant Charizard. Also means there will be no Flip Descript ability in play. And Isaiah, with the Quick Search, with some Jewel Seekers, and maybe with a little bit of help from those 2 cards off Iono, is going to have to find a few pieces to close this game out.
Yeah, and this is the way you have to do it, right? Because you haven't been able to put together the pieces to attack with a Regidrago V-Star, so instead, just use the Prime Catcher to bring up the Pheasantipity. You can still KO that very easily with the Combustion Blast, and so you then take it from there. It makes a lot of sense. And now, of course, it's a very awkward choice for Isaiah here, because he wants to keep both those Bouffalont out, but that means discarding other stuff which is too important, so I think you have to actually discard one of them, and if Isaiah can't find a way to get that second one back, then Radiant Charizard could maybe come in again and KO that other Terrapagos.
So there it is, Combustion Blast, yet again, knocking out Pheasantipity. Alberto evening things up at 2 prizes apiece. Isaiah, with that top deck, has 3 cards to work with. 3 cards here, as well as that Quick Search, and some Jewel Seeker potentially available, as we will see Quick Search get used right away, and this is sort of where the chain can get dangerous. Yes. Now, of course, you can use Jewel Seeker to find your trainer cards. However, that might just be all you need at this point. Remember, the double turbo energy is there. If you can find Stadium card, boss's orders, and enough Pokemon to knock out something like the Mew, but I think Isaiah can just chain these together and get there. Doesn't even need that.
Blood Moon Ursaluna.
Blood Moon Ursaluna is a great finishing Pokemon, especially when you're down some of your stadium cards later on. The double Turbo Energy, it only provides one because of that Temple of Sinnoh, but that's all you need thanks to the Blood Moon Ursaluna's ability, allowing it to attack for less energy based off of how many prize cards your opponent takes. So Blood Moon Ursaluna coming in clutch yet again on the stream. You know, It's been a very clutch card this weekend, and I'm sure for many trainers, and allows Isaiah to go up 1-0 in the set.
Yeah, and this is exactly why the Terrapagos deck plays that Blood Moon Ursaluna EX, right? In these late game scenarios, when your hand is disrupted, when you're not working with quite as much, you just need an attacker that will get you to that last little bit of damage you need for the knockout, but that doesn't rely on as many resources in terms of like a full bench or in terms of energy. So the perfect cleanup card and was the game clutcher there for Isaiah, even with the small hand size that he had.
So shuffling up into game 2, I mean, look, a lot went on in that game 1. Let's give Alberto credit. I mean, he started off that game extremely poor. Attach the Cleffa, pass, and Isaiah had a perfect turn 1 and turn 2. But he clawed back into this game. We did see that Drago get knocked out. Of course, Isaiah taking the first 2 prize cards, but it was this insane turn of digging for Alberto, where he was able to find the attachment for turn and 2 energy switch to be able to knock out this active Terrapagos, but Isaiah just did not let his foot off the gas, taking a knockout onto these benched EX Pokemon turn after turn, and didn't really need any other pieces, just had, the last double Turbo Energy already, and it was really the clean up of this chain of Noctowl for your 2 pieces. And I mean, look, if Isaiah needed more trainers, could have just grabbed something like another Ultra Ball potentially to grab even more Noctowl, but it was more than enough, and Isaiah closed out that first game.
Yeah, and it was the real clutch there for Isaiah was that Alberto wasn't able to take the KO on that Pidgeot EX. Even with the Iono hand disruption, if you can search for like the one card you need at any given moment, you're pretty much going to be good to go, right? And we saw that's exactly what happened there with the quick search, was able to piece together the Blood Moon with the Blood Moon Luna and the Boss's orders to take the knockout from the bench Teal Mask Ogerpon for the win. But here we are going into game 2, and it looks like Alberto's kicking off with a better start already, safe to say.
Yeah, definitely still want that Regidrago down. We'll see if that is the case. Of course, that Teal Dance is a nice little boost in terms of drawing new cards, but it's mainly there since you want to energy switch those energies on to your Regidrago. Alberto will take the first turn to search the deck, see these prize cards, not a piece you want there. Ooh. Not only is the Prime Catcher that powerful ace-spec in the prizes, but the switch is there too. So as it stands, Alberto having no ways to pivot his Pokemon in and out of the active spot unless he's manual retreating. And spoiler news and a little bit of sad news, Regidrago is a big Pokemon. He is hard to move.
Yeah, retreat cost of 3, if I remember correctly.
3 retreat,
so very bulky. But one saving grace for Alberto did start with that Mew EX, which does have a retreat cost of 0. So, given the circumstances, it's about as good a starter as you could ask for.
There are definitely worse things for sure. Alberto will get the bad news that those cards are unavailable, and will most likely either choose to get out something like the Squawkabilly EX that was unavailable that last turn, or a Regidrago V. Really will showcase how strong Alberto thinks his hand is, right? If you're grabbing a Regidrago V when you have Nest Ball available and you're not playing a support or you're not playing Squawkabilly, it's one of 2 things. One, your hand has something like Professor's Research, ways to move energy cards around, it's a solid hand. Or 2, the more uncommon instance, Squawkabilly is not in the deck, and this is the best that I can do.
Yeah, you can go multiple ways in that sense. So Urban Vessel's going to find a couple of energy. It looks like Isaiah going to be doing his stretches as he waits for the Alberto's turn to be over. So it's very important, it's something you don't think about posture, right? You want to make sure that you're feeling limber whilst you're at the desk. It's a completely separate point, but it's just something that when I catch myself slouching, right, it's important to bear in mind.
So we will see the Earthen Vessel get rid of the Pheasantipity, and now the Super Rod will shuffle it back into the deck. And it's sort of an interesting circumstance of using a Super Rod this early, and this could also, note for Alberto that his hand could be a little bit weaker if having to rely off of something like Restart, but he understands after that first game, it was the world of difference, whether or not that Regidrago V was down on that first turn, so he can evolve to the V-Star and threaten some of those attacks early on.
And off the restart, draws a Professor's Research for next turn as well.
That's excellent. That's exactly what you want. Mew coming in clutch as Isaiah starts his turn off. I did start with the Bouffalon, so there is currently just one in play. You need to have a little bit of the team, a little bit of the herd to be able to get that bonus Curly Wall ability. Does have some pieces in hand to consider. There is an Ultra Ball. That can always start the party off by grabbing Fan Rotom, which grabs your friends, and from there it kind of can spiral out of control. Pidgeot and Thornton will hit the discard pile. Never love to see Pidgeot go, but it's part of what you have to do, as Isaiah will now take his first deck search, see what pieces are available, see what pieces are prized. Not the best prizes for what it's worth. I mean, you always, of course, want to have things like Noctowl, the rare candy into your deck, but for all things considered, you have to prize 6 cards. These are okay prizes to have.
They're all cards that you play more than one of, right? So I think, yeah, you're pretty okay with pretty much all these, to be honest. And there won't be anything crippling for Isaiah to try and work with here. Now, you mentioned that, of course, that Pidgeot EX had to be discarded from the Ultra Ball, but it is important to note, like with Towards This, is playing that 2-0-2 line rather than the 1-0-1 that we see some play. So discarding one Pidgeot EX, not actually the end of the world here.
Yeah, and if you want to make a case for how good thicker Pidgeot lines are, look at that last game.
Yeah.
Isaiah was able to do everything he did because Pidgeot was established, and this is what I always talk about with this deck. It is extremely strong if Pidgeot is online for a majority of the game. If Pidgeot is either not online since you can't find the pieces to get it evolved, or if it gets knocked out from some early aggression, it can be very tough to find those pieces you need on the following turns towards the end of the game, especially when Pidgeot, a lot of the times, is just your consistent way to find double turbo energy.
Yeah, that's the one thing that Noctowl can't really find you, right? Unless you're playing Chorus's Tenacity, which opens you to a little bit of a risk in terms of falling for a victim to a Kyurem, of course, which can attack for less energy if a supporter with Chorus is in your discard pile. Then you have to, if you don't play Chorus's Tenacity, then yeah, Pidgeot is pretty much the only way to search out double turbo energy. And you only play 4 of them, right? So it's something they have to bear in mind.
So it looks like Terapagos, the choice off of the Ultra Ball. We're going to see a double turbo and no Fan Rotom here for Isaiah. Did still have 1 copy in the deck, but looks like really relying off of having that Terapagos in play really might showcase what cards he has in hand. Didn't play supporter, didn't do much of anything, as Alberto has a big opportunity to put on a lot of aggression in this spot. We see the second attachment and the energy switch, no supporter needed, and a research will get rid of this Dragapult. So now Alberto has a fully powered up attacker and hasn't even used his V-Star power yet and can still draw plenty of cards. This is what you draw up if you are a Regidrago player playing something like this list, and if you're Alberto in this spot.
Drew the energy switch off of the restart, off of the Mew, 1 card, and then just with the research from the Dragapult, could not ask for a more perfect turn 2 here as, wow, that Regidrago is now fully powered up. What a contrast to game 1.
This is what you want. I mean, Mew is clutch. I'm going to say it over and over again. It's 1 card that you draw a lot of times when you use Restart, but you saw how much of a difference that made. It was draw into Research and draw into Energy Switch. Yep. I mean, Mew's done its job. You can go home. He's done with the shift. We don't need him anymore.
Another vessel coming in, 2 more grass energies found, so we'll be able to do a couple of teal dance as well. And this is going to be very important because you want to make sure that you have not just 1 Regidrago set up, of course, but that you set up the second one as soon as possible. Just burn through those energy switches, get those grass energies off of the Ogerpon and onto the second Regidrago so that you can follow up straight away, even if there's a crazy turn and your 1 Regidrago V does get knocked out. So teal dance number 1, teal dance number 2. Gonna find a couple more cards. Looks to be a canceling cologne, not very useful here, but still just digging through the deck and doing it very nicely. There's the second Regidrago V as well. I don't think there's been an energy attachment for turn yet, so can maybe...
No, it has attached.
No, okay, yeah, no.
The Regidrago is already powered up, so no need to worry about that. Second one waiting on the bench to be powered up soon, as here we go. Apex Dragon. See what choices Alberto has. It looks like it's currently just the Dragapult EX, so can copy the Phantom Dive attack to do 200 to this active Bouffalante and choose where to put these damage counters. Is there any specific placement you think that would be pretty optimal in this spot?
So I think you definitely want to put at least 1 onto the Hoot Hoot, because then if it doesn't evolve, you can snipe it with another Phantom Dive for 6 damage counters. You could also consider whether you want to actually put 3 at least onto the Terapagos EX, because then of course you can just hit it for 200 with another Phantom Dive or actually going to 220. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so the 10 on the Terapagos here means that if 2 Bouffalante are in play, Lost Impact can still take the knockout.
So that makes big difference.
And the math here, putting at least 4 damage counters onto the Hoot Hoot means that when it evolves into Noctowl, it will still be knocked out from bench damage from Phantom Dive going forward. So it accomplishes 2 things in 1. So I think this is a smart choice from Alberto. I'm sure he's put Phantom Dive damage on plenty of Hoot Hoots and Terapagos throughout his couple of regional runs, as Isaiah, at least after that slow-ish start, does have the Jewel Seeker, so we'll be interested to see what 2 trainer cards he decides to grab to get his turn going.
Yeah, I guess so the other thing I was going to say, of course, is that if you put at least 3 damage onto the Trapper Ghost, then, of course, you can do Phantom Dive in the active to take a KO. But yes, as you rightly said, putting at least the 1 on means that Lost Impact, even after a Curly Wall being online, will still take a KO as well. So I think the sort of placing the damage counters this way gives you the most exploitable lines later on to take meaningful knockouts when you need to.
Absolutely. I mean, you've only got 6 counters, so no matter how you place it, it's never going to be perfect. As Isaiah starts things off with a Jewel Seeker that does grab the Professor's Research and the Night Stretcher. You see how much and how important Isaiah really thinks this Bouffalante is in the matchup, and it paid dividends when it was out. I mean, if that Bouffalante was out even earlier in that first game, Alberto wouldn't really even had a chance to come back in that situation. So Isaiah's, I think, smartly identifying, I'm going to want to have Curly Wall online, even though this Trapper Ghost does have that 1 damage counter. Forcing Lost Impact out over, you know, some other attacking options is definitely a lot more resource intensive. As we see the Bouffalante come down, Research get played, and Isaiah will see 7 more cards this turn. Yeah, because it's still a nice thing to force, right? Because you're forcing then Alberto to have to lost zone 2 energy, which you really don't want to do a lot of the time. So it makes a lot of sense to try and get that Bouffalante online as quickly as possible. As we do see there, the Nest Ball will be able to get that second Bouffalante down now if you wanted to. Could grab the Bouffalante or could grab something like Pheasantipede EX to just allow a little bit more aggressive draw. As it stands right now, Isaiah is only dealing with this Nest Ball Pokemon 60 damage or 90 damage, excuse me, minus the 20. That's 70 damage. That is not fighting numbers. That is not math that you need to keep up in this matchup. No, not at all. And of course, with the Bouffalante KO from the Phantom Dive, we'll be able to flip the script this turn to draw 3 more cards. And you want to, given that your draw and search options are a little bit limited right now. There's your 1 Jewel Seeker has been used. There's no Pidgey to evolve into a Pidgeot. You definitely want to try and draw as much as possible to try and set up your board, both for future setup and search, but also so you can just do more damage with Unified Beatdown. So Isaiah now using as much draw as possible. All powerful draw abilities and supporters for this turn have been used. So the question is now with this 10-card-ish hand, how can you build your board to be as strong as possible? The Curly Wall we've identified, that's a great start. Do you think it's worth putting down something like Pidgey or Duskull this late? I mean, it's crazy to say late, it's turn 3, right? But this late into the mid game essentially, when they are just liabilities to be knocked out easily from Phantom Dive. Yeah, it is rough. If you can get 2 Pidgey down, then you're feeling okay, because then you'd force like a Boss's Order play to KO both Pidgeys, and then if that doesn't happen, then you can at least 1 will survive and you can go for it that way. But it is tough, right? Because with that Phantom Dive placing 6 damage counters on the bench, you never really feel that safe with 60 HP Pokemon. There is no 70 HP Pidgey, so 60 HP is the maximum you could get on there, so it's definitely going to be a risk and a consideration. And that Duskull, you're only playing 1, right? So you can forget about it. If that comes down, that's getting sniped straight away. Yeah, so just confirming, Isaiah has not attached it for turn. Did attach the double turbo energy on the first turn, so we'll just make sure everything is confirmed. That Blood Moon Ursaluna, the MVP at the end of the game to close things out, already being prepped with that energy card to start things off. And I think that's all Isaiah's going to want to do in this spot. Doesn't want to put down liable 60 HP Pokemon if it means just dealing a little bit more damage. So we'll see 140 onto this Drago V-Star, excuse me, putting it into a 2-hit knockout range. However, there was not the second Bouffalante that came down. So if Alberto does choose to, could take a knockout with something like the Lost Impact, take another 2 prizes, and push himself closer to forcing a Game 3 if he so chooses to. Yeah. And with only 6 on the bench, if the Stadium gets countered, then it's going to be very easy for Isaiah to just discard the Noctowl and then feel pretty content with the rest of the bench. So definitely clever not overbenching without needing to, especially given that he's not taking a KO anyway, right? So very smart there from Isaiah, not just going really wide when he doesn't need to. As it's now back on Alberto. It's going to be very, very important for him to set up that second Regidrago V now. This V-Star inactive is heavily damaged. It's probably going down next turn. You need to make sure that you have a follow-up attack. Yeah, and this is really interesting here. Not using this V-Star power yet opens up a lot of plays for Alberto. You see that Kyurem at the bottom left of your screen. Trifrost would be an excellent attack to use. Not only would you take 3 prize cards and remove essentially the only support Isaiah has for the following turn in that Hoot on the bench, but you also put yourself onto 2 prize cards. Even 2 prize cards is an excellent spot to be in this matchup, with there being the Pheasantipede on the bench, with there already being 10 damage on the Terrapagos EX, it will just open up so many plays, and by saving this V-Star power and having 2 Regidrago set up, it gives you multiple ways to close the game out next turn.
And this is exactly why it was so important for Isaiah, if possible, to get down 2 Bouffalon, because if he did, then this play wouldn't be possible, because sure, you can take out the Noctowl, but then the Bouffalon's Curly Wall ability would reduce the damage from Trifrost onto that Hoo-Hoo and onto the Bouffalons themselves, so it was kind of a big miss there from Isaiah.
It is always a risk, right? You do have to discard those top 7 cards of your deck in order to, use an effect like the Legacy Star. However, this is a little bit more enticing, if I do say so myself, to go for a play like this. Now, it is risky. You do know that your Prime Catcher and Switch are in the prize card, so there could be some weird worlds where Isaiah maybe, can punish this Regidrago not having any way to move out of the active, but here we go.
Yeah,
it's going to be Trifrost taking 3 prizes, and now all of a sudden, Alberto still has that V-Star power, goes down to 2 prize cards, having a 4 prize lead against Isaiah's board. And look, this is still a very winnable game for Isaiah. It's still very possible. It's going to take a lot of luck, though, and it might take a good amount of time. Freya, we're winding down on just over 11 minutes in this situation. No V-Star power used. Alberto's going to have to get extremely lucky, or unlucky, excuse me, in a bunch of different disruptive circumstances Isaiah is going to attempt to create if he wants to win this game. I don't fault Isaiah for playing it out here. Seeing these cards, at least I'll flip the script, but you've got to be considering, is it over? Is it a little bit too lost for me to continue to give myself into this game when you have such an advantage going first?
Yeah, I think so, honestly. I mean, I know you're saying that maybe there's some route where if Alberto gets very unlucky, as I can pull it back, but even with that, I'm not sure I see it, because I think there's just, with the, I think it'd be different if the Legacy Star hadn't been used, but given that that's still online, I'm fairly sure that you can, even if this Regidrago gets KO'd, you can Legacy Star for the exact 2 cards you need to take the KO on pretty much anything. I don't see a way for Isaiah to pull it back here, honestly.
So I think this is Isaiah's best bet, and I think he acknowledges it here. He's going to attack with this Blood Moon Ursaluna. Since Alberto is at 2 prize cards, it is able to use that attack. Of course, Blood Moon, absolutely great and powerful attack to use to deal 220 to knock this active out. And then if he can get down a second Bouffalon, now Lost Impact is not taking a knockout onto this active. The big problem with that, though, is if Alberto has a Boss's Orders in his discard pile, he can just Legacy Star for the Grass Energy and the boss, and the game will be over. However, I don't know if the Giratina V-Star is in the discard pile yet, and I think if it was, Isaiah would probably be wrapping things up, and it's not going to be so. We'll check here to see if Alberto has it. Just needs to find an energy card and that Giratina V-Star. And no, it is not in the discard pile yet.
That changes things.
That changes things for Isaiah. Understands that he'd lose the game either way, no matter what he promotes, because Legacy Star is still available. But I think this is going to close things out. We've got the Ultra Ball that can discard 2 cards from the hand, find this Giratina V-Star, and then even if there isn't another Ultra Ball in the hand, you can grab an energy card, and you can grab back an Earthen Vessel or an Ultra Ball to discard the Giratina. And I think this will be it here. Yeah,
I think, just grab the Giratina V-Star, go for Professor's Research, and then you literally just retreat and use Legacy Star to guarantee an energy, right? Yeah, I think this is it.
Yeah, you don't even necessarily need to. I mean, you could honestly just use the Legacy Star right now.
Yeah, you can.
There's no need to, do all this extra work. And I mean, if I'm Alberto here, I mean, you could take extra time to win this game. Like, it makes sense, but I mean, it's pretty much.
Hold on a second.
No, I mean, he's still got Legacy Star. All he has to do here, unless I'm missing something, 2 prizes, 2 Bouffalon in play means this Terrapagos has 290 HP, right? So 280, and that's just the game right here, right?
Yeah.
Attaches the energy card, and are we missing something here?
I don't think so. Is Alberto missing something
There's 2 Bouffalon in play. Has the boss, sure.
Did he, maybe he didn't realize that he hadn't used the V-Star power?
He might have. He was drawing so well, he might have thought he had to dig for that boss, but, maybe styling a little bit, saying, I don't need Legacy Star, that ability is trash. Let me show you how it's done. A non-V-Star used game here for Alberto. Ladies and gentlemen, you just saw the peak of Regidrago on display. This is what the deck can do if everything goes right.
Yeah, the peak of Regidrago V-Star, as you said, not even using the V-Star power, which is one of the strongest things this deck has going for it. So yeah, wow. Really, really phenomenal display there from Alberto, as now we are going into this game 3.
Here we go. I mean, the time is winding down, and that is the biggest thing for me. I mean, you can't fault Isaiah again for playing things out. I'm sure he's come back from more grim spots in the past. However, we're going to have to sort of lock in on this situation. Isaiah's going to have another big advantage going first for the first time in this set. And now it felt like he went first in game one
Yeah.
since he essentially got a glorified going first. There was that energy attachment, which was sort of relevant if they get E-switched off later.
Yeah, that's true, actually. We'll onto the Cleffer, but yeah, I think you don't really want to be starting a series by just attach Cleffer pass, let's be real.
Absolutely not. And the big key there from both sides, Alberto drew perfectly almost in this case, had essentially cookie cut out textbook turns. But Isaiah really struggled, and I think it all surrounds around the fact that Fan Rotom is what makes this deck spin. It's what makes this deck go.
Yeah, and yet in this game, didn't even need it. Yeah, it decided in the end was way more valuable to grab that that Terapagos, because of course with that you can't if you don't have that you can't use the Jewel Seeker. But it does end up kind of not coming back to bite him in the end, because that Phantom Rotom, it does set you up so well. It was it was an awkward position to be forced into, so that you can actually just get into the game.
Yeah.
But from there, Alberto just walked away with the game, really.
Yeah, of course, if Isaiah could grab the Fan Rotom in that spot, he absolutely would have grabbed it, but it just showed there was no Terra Pokemon in play, so could not really capitalize off of the constant search that is able to be found in terms of Pokemon, thanks to Fan Rotom. But here we go, Freya. We're getting into Game 3 and starting off quickly. Both these players know time is of the essence. Isaiah's going to very quickly search these prize cards, see what's available. Those are not cards you love to see prized. Two of those Noctowl.
No.
Isaiah is, of course, playing a thicker line. Does also have Hisuian Heavy Ball in his deck, so the Pheasantipity being prized is not great. However, it can be searched out thanks to a Jewel Seeker, quick search, just drawing into it. It's not as bad of a card to be locked up.
I'll tell you what, that Briar, though, that's actually quite important. Given that the amount of time left on the clock, Briar could be a key piece to try and win the game a bit more quickly, so actually that being prized could hurt him.
We'll see if it comes back to bite him, being in the prizes. We'll do this first deck search, Buddy Poffin, so I'm sure we'll see Fan Rotom come down, and then one other Pokemon. Something like the Hoot would make the most sense. And this is the big question here for Isaiah. How can he navigate himself to win the game in 3 turns? Essentially, if he can figure out a way to win this game in 3 turns, he is in a very solid spot because of how the clock winds down.
Yeah.
4 turns is doable, and absolutely with how strong the start looks, but it's really going to be the time clock.
Yeah.
It's really going to be, where are we in the game, Freya, when that clock hits 0, and whose turn is it?
And let's be real, if there's any deck that can win in 3 turns, it's Terapagos, right? And especially with that 1-0-1 Dusknoir line, if you can get down that Duskull down, I think that would be a really clutch sort of addition to try and win in that sort of shorter time that you have. And I'm sure if Isaiah is able to, he will want to put that down. As we do see, he goes to actually the Buddy Poffin for 2 Hoot, and then has the Fan Rotom ready to go in the hand to go for that Fan Call.
Yeah, even has a Buddy Poffin as well. So I wonder here what Isaiah wants to do. If he would rather keep that Buddy Poffin in hand just as a card you could discard with Ultra Ball or get rid of at some point. But this is the Fan Rotom. It's here now in Game 3, exactly when Isaiah needs it. So can grab the Noctowl, the Bouffalante, and the Hoot. So getting ready to have a very strong 8 Pokemon on bench next turn, pending he can find all the pieces necessary, which is not very difficult when you've got Jewel Seeker to aid you.
No, not at all. I would, if possible, I would really like to see Alberto get down this Duskull, because if you don't get it down early on, of course, a Phantom Dive being copied from Apex Dragon will be able to put 6 damage counters on and KO it very easily. But if you can get it down now, you're nowhere near as worried about that.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a back and forth, a little bit of a pro and con. This is one of the matchups where, Dusknoir is not as strong as it is in others, and that's sort of why, a lot of these players have cut down on the thickness of the Dusknoir line. We'll take a look and see what Alberto has got going on. How solid is this hand to start? We'll start off with a Teal Dance.
Oh, it's not great, there's no draw card, so this Teal Dance is very important.
Wow.
Oh, no.
So did draw into the Radiant Charizard, and now the question is, what is he sitting on? There is a Nest Ball, and that is definitely a good piece, a little bit of a saving grace here for Alberto, since Squawkabilly can always just let you say, you know what, I don't like these 6 cards, I'm going to draw a fresh hand of 6, and yeah, while it is a liability later on in the game, it's what is necessary in order to progress the game state.
Yeah, I think the tricky thing here is that, for Alberto now, you have to put down his Squawkabilly, and it is a very easy thing to KO for Isaiah, which doesn't even need a full bench down to get the KO right. So it's a 2-prize KO where you need a lot less investment to get there, and I'm sure that's exactly what Isaiah would want in a situation where he needs to just take 6 prizes as quickly as possible.
And that's sort of what Squawkabilly is at the end of the day. Nobody wants to have Squawkabilly on the bench, but it's the trade-off. It's what you have to do to give yourself more draw and more chances to develop a strong board, especially against the faster decks in format, like the Terrapagos deck. So we'll see the Regidrago come down into the bench, or excuse me, in the active spot. There's the Squawk ability coming down, and Radiant Charizard will hit the field too. And the question is there anything else for Alberto to play before we see Squawk and Seas draw him a fresh new hand of 6 cards?
No, I think there's literally not a single other card in the hand that searches the deck. So yeah, just going to be a quick shuffle. Going to go for that energy switch onto the active. Maybe you can, get a... no, not anymore. I was going to say maybe if you get lucky, you can do a Dragon Laser turn 1, but now with attaching the Grass Energy manually, that's not going to happen.
It's tough to do a Dragon Laser. There is like the pros and cons in this case. You would, of course, take the first prize, but then you make it so, you've invested all these energies and all your energy switch, and then if you're knocked out, you're going to be in a really tough spot.
Yeah.
But of course, it is something that is always possible with this deck. Alberto will see 6 new cards and does find what looks like to be a Nest Ball and a couple of supporters to choose from now. Does also know right now that Isaiah is sitting on a Noctowl. It was grabbed as one of those 100 HP or less colorless Pokemon thanks to Fan Call. So there's sort of that, pro and con. Alberto could play the Siono. It would force him to put some of these pieces on the bottom, draw 1 less card. It would also mean if there's some pieces like Pokemon he wants to put in the discard pile, he'd have to wait later on. So we'll see what Alberto decides to do. Will he play the Iono or the Research? And it is going to be the Iono. And I think him knowing that there's a Noctowl in hand gives him a little bit more peace of mind that this is probably the correct decision. Yeah,
that was definitely the right way to go about it here. Just kind of maybe on the off chance that Isaiah just misses here, you can then kind of capitalize on a weaker board. We have seen the Terrapagos Dusknoir deck in the past sometimes just get Iono'd and then just completely brick, right? And you need your opponent to brick here if you want to have a chance of winning in such a short time frame.
We do see another Nest Ball come down. It looks like it will be the 3rd Teal Mask Ogerpon. So really just trying to, seems like, draw as many cards as possible. Are there more Grass Energy in the hand? There are indeed.
Yes.
So we'll see the Grass come down. Another card drawn for Alberto as we approach just over 60 seconds left in this match. What does he have to find? Are there any pieces? Is just going to pass. So look, there are 2 energy onto this active Regidrago V. And now Isaiah has an opportunity to take these first 2 prizes and also remove all energies almost off of Alberto's board. We'll see after this Iono what pieces he has to work with. That's got to be his goal here, though.
Yeah, he has to think so. So it's going to be Ultra Ball, going to discard that Pidgey and that Duskull. Okay, hold on a second. If you discard the Duskull here, you do leave yourself the potential to do a Fortin play to get a Dusknoir and play out of nowhere. Maybe then you can try and build yourself up to the damage needed to get... Because without that, you have no way of taking 6 prizes in 2 turns. And this turn is inevitably going to go to time here, right? So I think that needs to be part of your game plan if you're going to try and win in time here.
It could definitely be. I feel like if you were going to use that, you might have to, save the Thornton until later on after you've already used one of your Cursed Blast abilities. So it's definitely a little bit tough. So with 10 seconds remaining and Isaiah still having plenty to do in this spot, it looks like we will most likely be going to time in this match. So Isaiah will be turn 0, Alberto turn 1, and Isaiah turn 2, Alberto turn 3. So both players will essentially from this point have 2 turns to close the game out. And with how things are standing, it is possible for Isaiah, right? He could take 2 prize cards here on this Regidrago, and then if there's maybe 2 Cursed Blast abilities or Cursed Blast onto a 1 prize Pokemon plus Briar, plus... It's definitely still far-fetched, but this is the setup you need if you're going to have a chance to win this game.
But this is the tricky thing that goes back to earlier, right? Because we saw the Briar was prized.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, Briar in this case is going to be definitely a little bit more tough to pull off since your opponent doesn't have to be at the 2 prize cards, and with Alberto losing a lot of resources here, we'll see how Isaiah finishes this turn off, right? If he gets another Bouffalant down, if he has Curly Wall established. We don't know how likely it is that Alberto is going to be able to respond in kind, or if he even wants to in this spot, right? Every time you take prize cards, if you're not winning the game, it's almost helping your opponent since you activate Pheasantipity every single turn.
Yeah,
so Alberto, at this point, maybe thinking, you know what? I don't think I can win this game at this spot. What can I do to make sure that I don't lose in this position? We'll definitely see, based off of how he makes his actions going forward, what the decision is in terms of what he wants to get out of this match.
Double Bouffalant coming down just to really protect this Terrapagos and, as you said, kind of prevent a lose condition, right, rather than just thinking about a win condition. And with that full bench of 8 now, the Unified Beatdown will come in for 220 knockout on the Regidrago V, taking out those 2 energies, so already a great start. Maybe if this game had gone on longer, Isaiah would have been able to just outright win it, but in this circumstance, given that time is called, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, it's really tough, because for Alberto, now that there are those 2 Bouffalant in play, the game cannot be won. As long as Isaiah does not make crucial mistakes in terms of, discarding Pokemon off of a stadium bump and just kind of leaving the Buffalon in play, Isaiah cannot lose the game. So the question now for Alberto is, what can I do in terms of playing this game out to make it so that I do not lose? I think step one is what I mentioned. Don't take prize cards unless they are removing very powerful threats. So for example, if you're knocking out Pidgeot EX, I think that's a pretty valid way to, make a trade. Your opponent gets to draw 3 cards, but you get to stop them from grabbing any one card.
Yeah.
Things like that are okay, but just taking meaningless knockouts onto, bench Pokemon with Phantom Dive, even using things like, Trifrost, they can be good, but it has to have a purpose.
Yeah.
You have to be knocking things out with purpose, and that's just the threat that Pheasantipede as a card puts onto you in terms of, trying to stop your opponent from achieving what they want to achieve.
Of course, and like we've already mentioned, of course, or rather in an earlier game, now that those 2 Buffalons are out, Trifrost will be doing way less to the bench or the basic colorless Pokemon that Isaiah has out. So, getting those 2 Buffalon down really cuts off a lot of potential win or prize avenues for Alberto here.
So we'll see Mew EX come into play off of the Ultra Ball, it seems like. So Alberto's going to just try and see as many cards as possible, draw things out, see where this energy decides to go. There is that fire energy in the hand. Now this Regidrago did get promoted for turn, so it makes me think that that might be the attacker of choice in Alberto's mind. We're going to see the Teal Dance be used first, so Alberto's still going through the motions. It's sort of a little bit weird spot to be playing through the situation, thinking to yourself, okay, well, I can't win, so what am I supposed to do in this spot? But every match point matters, especially with the way that asymmetric cut works.
Yes.
If these players win this last round of Swiss following this, they're going to be in a good spot, especially being at 6-1-1 compared to 6-2. We'll see how things complete, but it is looking like things are going to be tough, at least on Alberto's side, to get a win here in this third game.
Yeah, now I'm not going to lie, those restart cards are pretty good. So after evolving the Regidrago V into the V-Star, there was left with just an Iono, but then off of the restart on the Mew EX found a Nest Ball and an Earthen Vessel, so can go ahead and play the Earthen Vessel, discard that Nest Ball, grab a Fire Energy and a Grass Energy, can go for one more Teal Dance, and then I imagine we'll see the Iono after that.
It's what you got to do. You got to disrupt as much as possible. Try and take out these attacking threats. I mean, as it stands, it's always weird since I have to try and think about if it's really worth the trade-off of knocking the Terapagos out. All it really does is it takes one Pokemon out of play, and it takes the double Turbo out of play.
Yes.
So it just changes that. But this is, okay, I thought we were playing Boss. I was getting excited. I was like, oh, Boss is what we want here. That's what we want to play down. But no, it's just going to be the Canceling Cologne getting played since it doesn't really do anything here. It could shut down the Buffalon now that I think about it, since if you bring the Buffalon into the active spot, but the Curly Wall still exists in the bench, right? So it doesn't necessarily work that way.
No.
Thought there was a cute way to get around it, but it doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't work like that. It's kind of, you need 2 to activate it, and then if you have both of one with the same ability, they kind of both protect each other, right? So it's kind of nice, so double backup insurance in that way to prevent any Canceling Cologne shenanigans like you insinuated.
Strength in numbers. I like the sound of that.
Yes.
So Alberto did get 6 cards off of the Iono. Looking through the rest of the turn, it may be an energy switch. Okay, so if that is the case, Alberto could use any of those Dragon-type Pokemon in his discard pile's attacks thanks to the Apex Dragon on Regidrago V-Star. He's even considering using this V-Star power, and honestly, in this position, it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look in this situation. Isaiah is going to be turn 2. At this point, I don't think there's a way that either player is really going to be able to win in this situation. Alberto's going to get this turn and one more turn, and Isaiah only gets 1 turn left to play this game out. Unless I'm missing something, because of the Buffalon being in play, and because of Isaiah only playing a 101 line of Dusknoir, with the Dusclops, or excuse me, with the Duskull already being in the discard pile, and Thornton, potentially still being available, but that's it. It looks like the writing's almost on the wall, but these players are going to play it out and make sure they don't miss anything in terms of, things that could go wrong in spots like this.
Yeah, and it's important to do that, right? Off of that, Legacy Star does find the second Energy Switch, which we'll need to attack with, and then going to go ahead and Teal Dance one more time. Energy Switch once, Energy Switch the second. Going to go ahead and get that Regidrago V-Star powered up. And now we'll be able to go ahead and Prime Catch. We did find out of the Ino, so that's actually, we forgot to even mention that, but now, as you mentioned, can actually take the KO on that Pidgeot, which, as we said, is probably the best KO that Alberto can take right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is what you want to do. As soon as possible, knock out Pidgeot, put some super solid aggression on right away. So we'll be able to do that thanks to Lost Impact, as long as that's in the discard pile. And with him picking up the energies, I think that is what we are going to see. So Lost Impact can take the knockout onto Pidgeot, shutting off the quick search engine for what is most likely going to be the rest of the game. And with there being no Duskull on the bench, Alberto feels pretty safe and pretty confident to just leave this Regidrago in the active, fully powered up, and say, look, Isaiah, I'm giving you a hand of 4 cards. If you have a fun Thornton, Switchermabob play on me and you can take a knockout, then...
Fair play, right?
Yeah, fair play on you, exactly.
All right, there's a Prime Catcher in hand, so that's a pretty good card for Isaiah to have access to. There's actually going to play that straight away, going to bring out the Mew, in fact, and that's going to be a guaranteed easy 2 prizes at the very least, so that's going to be nice for Isaiah, but I don't think there's much else after that because, I mean, the Pidgeot EX is gone, so there's no way to do anything with that. There was no Noctowl found. Actually, yeah, just going to be Prime Catcher, Unified Beatdown, KO.
So this is now turn 3 of time. Isaiah going down to 2 prize cards, and Alberto still being at 4. So we'll see this final turn of time, and then from that point, we will see what the result of the match is. The Regidrago comes up into the active spot, so it is ready to attack. It's actually not doing enough as it stands because Curly Wall is online. So how will Alberto choose to navigate through this last turn? The V-Star power's already been used. Does have a few cards in the hand. If there's something like Pheasantipity, that could, again, draw some more cards if it's already in the deck, or if it's in the discard pile, brought back with Super Rod. See how Alberto wants to play out this final turn of time.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned before, that's why in one of the previous games, getting that 1 damage counter on with the Phantom Dive is so important, because that means that even through a Bouffalante's Curly Wall, you can knock out a Trapagos that's protected. But given that's not the case right now, yeah, isn't able to do that. Does discard a Kyurem, though, with that Ultra Ball, so maybe can go for something with Triforce, but again, anything that you could KO is going to be... Oh, wait, hold on. There's only 1 Noctowl out, right? So you can KO that, but then I think you can't KO anything else on the field with Triforce, because they're all basics protected by Curly Wall.
It is not possible. I mean, the main thing I'm thinking for Alberto is there a way to, knock out these Hoot, both of them on the bench? Does not play any cards like Hawlucha, which we've seen sort of fall out of favor as of recent in this Regidrago deck. It would be really great here to be able to, take 2 prize cards, assuming you have something like Boss's Orders or Prime Catcher. However, that's not the case, as we'll see Alberto continue through the turn. Will play down that Temple of Sinnoh, so now there is a choice for Isaiah on what Pokemon to discard, and
there it is.
It seems like there will be no victor today. Tying things up, it will be a draw between both of our competitors. 5-1-1 for both of them, it seems like.
Yeah, oh, wait, hold on a second. I think let's see how they, because sometimes there's agreement based on like the amount of prizes. The lead, and it looks like Alberto, based on the prize lead, is actually conceding the game.
Wow, great sportsmanship there from Alberto. Let me eat my words there.
Yeah.
Alberto, being a good sport, understands that, look, these players are both playing to win an international championship. 1 match point, yes, it puts them slightly closer to day 2, to the records they want to be at, but it's nowhere near the 3 match points that come with the victory. Alberto understands that, look, if this game were to go on next turn, as long as Isaiah has another Boss's Orders and another way to, get some more Pokemon into play, since there's no way to remove those Hoot out of play, he's going to be in a very solid spot to close the game out. So no draw between both these players. Great sportsmanship for Alberto. While Isaiah did win this game and does finally make it day 2, it is a little bit of a, a sort of interesting scenario, but you've got to feel for Isaiah. A big congratulations. He's had a slow start to the season. This is his first day 2 of the 2025 season, so big congratulations to Isaiah. It's been a long time coming so far, but he does it, and this time it's not with Regidrago.
No, it's with the Terrapagos Dusknoir deck. So let's go back and see how that series went, go through the replay as we saw. Yeah, in that game 1, Alberto, off to a rough start, but managed to draw just enough cards to find enough energy switches to get a KO with this Radiant Charizard, but still not quite enough, as Isaiah was just too far ahead and was able to take, make too many counterplays, taking knockouts by bringing stuff up on from the bench and refilling his own bench to take knockouts with a Unified Beatdown. So yeah, Boss's Orders there, that was kind of all she wrote.
Yeah, all thanks to Pidgeot EX, just allows you to find all the pieces you need to close the game out. That Blood Moon Ursaluna, of course, with the seasoned skill ability to attack for just the double colorless in order to close the game out. But in game 2, it was all Alberto. Had the perfect draws, did not need to do anything in terms of using that V-Star power. Turn 2, Phantom Dive, and Isaiah, without having a lot of Pokemon in play on that first turn, really struggled to, develop a consistent board. But even if that was there was just so much offensive pressure thanks to that Trifrost and thanks to preserving the V-Star power. And we saw it didn't even need the V-Star power there in game number 2, just had it all.
Yeah, just had it all indeed. Didn't even need to make use of the Legacy Star, one of the strongest parts of that deck. It just found the boss's orders off of the restart to go ahead and take that game. And then going into game 3, of course, it was a bit of a, no, we're not going to see game 3 apparently, but yeah, that was Alberto. In the end, we can just go over it quickly. Of course, we just saw it. Not able to quite win the game outright, but recognizing the game state, knowing that if the game had gone on, wouldn't have been able to win. Offered the concession in game 3 to give Isaiah the win, and therefore the match, and therefore enough match points to make it to day 2.
An excellent match. Again, great sportsmanship from both of our competitors. We're going to be seeing Isaiah into day 2, and Alberto's not out of it yet. He's on a winning in at 5-2 at this point. Again, still plenty of Pokemon to be played. Speaking of decks, let's go ahead and take a look at our community bracket for the most underrated deck of the current format. Of course, we've showcased a few of those decks already. We did see Cloth take down Lost Zone Box.
Oh.
Chat, really? Chat, did we actually vote Cloth to be a more underrated deck than Lost Zone?
I guess so, yeah. I must have missed that one. I think I was busy getting ready for one of the interviews, so yeah. Oh, wow, completely missed that.
We definitely missed it, because if I was here when that happened, I would not have let that slide. Chat, you guys can redeem yourself, because we've got our final top 8 match. It's going to be Bennett EX against Gouging Fire in terms of most underrated decks. This is the community choice. So if you're not watching, make sure you guys go onto Twitch, where you guys can vote for what you think, and we'll be giving our arguments, starting with you, Freya. Bennett, Gouging Fire, pick one, tell me why it's underrated.
Okay, I'm gonna go for Gouging Fire here, and it's gonna be for one reason, and actually it's 2 words: Luke Kirkham, the mastermind of Gouging Fire, has gotten multiple top 16s with it, and he's kind of, the reason why I kind of tie him into it is because he has shown how much potential the card kind of always had. Doing 260 damage for 2 fires and a colorless is something that should have always been made use of, and I'm kind of shocked it's taken this long, especially because you have the synergy with Professor Sada's Vitality, which we already know is a good card from Roaring Moon and Ancient Box, of course, and you can play around with the downside of the Gouging Fire, of course, is that when it attacks, it has to leave the active spot before it can attack again with that attack. But it's just such a good number to hit 260, and you can play around that so easily, and you can make use of other fire attackers like the Delphox V, and you can make use of the Armor if you want to as well. There's just so much going for it, and I think it's almost the epitome of an underrated deck in this format, I think.
Yeah, I think Bennett is honestly better than Gouging Fire. You got item lock, you've got damage movement with the Monkey Dory, and you've got it all with the Gardevoir engine. At least that's how most people are playing it. Look, it combines